This week's episode was brought to you by Arvo Littlejohn and Tommy S. Thank you, Arvo Littlejohn and Tommy S. It's with the generous support of listeners like yourself that keeps our troop of Bandolier Bunny bandits breaking and booby-trapping the Black Iron Prison 6 ways from Sunday, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And really, that's the problem, because time is an illusion and so is money, which is why we need more of it. If you'd like to help us booby-trap the Black Iron Prisoner, just hear the second half of this demonologically dense episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only earn you the extended second uncensored half of this episode, nay, you'll get the extended second uncensored half of all of our episodes, which I promise will fill more time than it will drain your wallet. But if that were not enough, I'll send you a 5x5 high quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art at no additional cost, along with instantaneous access to our Discord server, which is the last place on the internet for semi-mature discussion about philosophy. You just need to survive the memes. On this week's episode, we continue our in-depth analysis of Liber ARARITA by Aleister Crowley. In this portion, we compare the lines of Chapter 1, the good side of the Tree of Life, with Chapter 2, the evil or Qlippothic Tree of Death. By exploring the overlap and averse relationship between each verse, we catch a glimpse of how each sephira on the Tree of Life really works when its energies are active in our life. In the free show, we make it halfway down the tree and conclude our in-depth analysis in the second half. Along the way, Mari gets incredibly personal with her experiences working with Lilith, the demon at the bottom of the Tree of Life. And finally, we reveal some of the more obscure lines of the text and their deeper meaning, specifically in ways we don't think you'll find anywhere else. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
I'm wearing my new wheat pants.
You know what they say, don't steal a wig from the devil.
They say that?
Yeah, they'll be held to pay.
Oh,
To pay.
What kind of car does the devil drive?
What?
An anti-Chrysler.
Oh my god.
You know, my devil-worshipping brother just got a new rowboat. Yeah, he christened it Sail Hatin'. What's the difference between the government and the devil?
What?
Nothing.
yeah, really.
You can say no to the devil.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it'll do you much good with the government.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just partake of the fruit of the tree of life, because, after all, nobody said we couldn't. Nay, we allow our saucy, intellectually curious, naturally skeptical, nature-loving, snake conversation-having waifu companion of ours sweet talk us into pairing it with the fruit we were told by Yaldabaoth specifically not to. And you know what? Our eyes were open to just how incredible fig leaves look as an apron, because this week, we're taking off all the layers and comparing the tree of life to the Tree of Death to see what happens when we sandwich them together, because this week we're contrasting Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of Liber ARARITA, a Class A inspired holy text from the religion of Thelema written by Aleister Crowley during his Blood of the Saints ordeal. Whew, that was a mouthful, just the way he intended.
That was pretty crazy, yeah.
I'm your host, Hack Rabbit, also known as Luke Madrid. I'm joined this week by the Lady of the Milk Bone, Mari-sama,
Cheese is the best flavor.
the beam of sparkles in the spinal cord, Heka Astra,
Hello. We're going to inspect our fig leaves today.
and the teleological tantrum of the Trinity, Mr. Tim the Horned Goat Hacker.
And I would like to say that Mari is wrong. It's actually milk that's the best flavor.
Actually, that one's up there too, but cheese is more pronounced. It's very
She just
good.
admit you're wrong. Sorry.
I think dogs have greater taste buds. So I think Mari is the expert on this, being a corgi.
No,
Siding with her against me.
No, I just actually ate mill bones when I was a kid.
That's how you get tapeworms.
Whose opinion do you value greater about milk bones? A corgi or a goat?
Me.
Yeah, a goat will eat anything.
Yeah, Tim.
I'll eat anything too.
He's probably chewed on something right now.
I am plastic.
Checks out.
So let's get into it. Now, for how much Gnostic complaining we do on the show, I don't necessarily believe in an all good God and an all bad God. I just find the Gnostic evil escape room model to be quite useful. And I mentioned that it's so useful, I think we should allow a new incarnation of Gnosticism to rise. And I said we should look to Philip K. Dick to show us the way. Now, on this note, in Valis, Philip K. Dick covers quite a bit of different religious and spiritual philosophies. He doesn't really settle on them. It's more like he's testing them out and trying them, through the eyes of his main character, sussing out his thoughts. And there's one brief instance near the end of the book where Dick becomes searingly lucid about how God is not just good, but God is also evil.
And that has a lot to do with comparing chapter 1 and 2 of ARARITA.
Because essentially, that's what we're doing today. We're going to be comparing God's good side to God's evil side with mathematical precision. So to get started, this quote comes from Philip K. Dick in Valis, page 178.
But the divine and the terrible are so close to each other. Nomo and Urugu are partners. Both are necessary. Osiris and Seth too. In the book of Job, Yahweh and Satan form a partnership. For us to live, however, these partners must be split. The behind-the-scenes partnership must end as soon as time and space and all the creatures come into being. God can be good and terrible, not in succession, but at the same time. This is why we seek a mediator between us and him. We approach him through the mediating priest and attenuate and enclose him through the sacraments. It is for our own safety, to trap him within confines which render him safe.
Now, the speed at which Valis, just the novel, beams straight at your brain, it'd be easy to miss this. But in my opinion, it's fairly profound, and I don't know of anywhere else it's been more clearly spoken. That when we're looking at God through this lens, it's this big, huge everything. And what Philip K. Dick is saying is that we basically have a filter, so it doesn't kill us. And we recognize that to some extent, that our filter is what keeps us safe. And so it makes sense that when we look at other people's religions, they're like, oh, they're using a different filter, they're using that unsafe part, that's Satan. Because that's what we do. We filter out the part of God that we see as Satan. And so if anyone else is using a different filter, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was taught not filter, but interface.
I think that's a valid way to think of it too. The reason I say filter is because of this quality that Philip K. Dick is talking about, that God is awesome. And awesome can be good or terrible, right? It can be very good or very bad. And you know what? Life has a lot of both. How many times does a priest have to say, well, God works in mysterious ways whenever something awful happens? So how do we deal with this? If we really want to dissect this idea and get into the guts of it, this is the place to do it. Crowley even explains that this is how the text should be used.
Crowley writes, the use of this name and formula is to equate and identify every idea with its opposite, thus being released from the obsession of thinking any one of them as true and therefore binding. One can withdraw oneself from the whole sphere of the Ruach. Contrast each verse of chapter 1 with the corresponding verse of chapter 2 for the first of these methods. End quote.
I hope you have a Qlippothic Tree of Life on hand.
Well, we're just going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. It goes in order. We're not going to be bouncing around.
No, but it's helpful, like last time.
It is helpful. And, the tarot is like the paths between. I love this because this is even more simple than that. What is Crowley saying? He's saying take each line from its corresponding verse in the first chapter and then correspond to the one in the second chapter, and it creates a little puzzle. So let's get into it.
Like 0 to 0, 1 to 1, 2 to 2.
Yeah. And so if you've listened to the first 2 episodes, you know that it starts with 0 and moves to 13. So 0 would be the negative veils that are above and outside even Kether, the crown, which is numbered 1 at the top of the Tree of Life. So we're like in the big cloud outside of Kether. And so this is like a big, almost a general statement.
Chapter 1-0. Oh my God, one is thy beginning, one is thy spirit, and thy permutation, one.
Chapter 2, verse 0. Now then I saw these things averse and evil, and they were not, even as thou art not.
So the contrast given here is primarily shown between the words one and not. The repeated use of one in the phrase conveys absolute unity. In the second chapter, we see this contrasted with the repeated use of the word not, which is a separation or implies a lack of unity, being that it is not the one. It is the 0.
Whoa, that's confusing. Actually, it's just 1 and 0. Okay, I got it.
In Thelema, the 0 is a numeric representation of Nuit, through which all numbers spring forth. any number may be reduced to a singularity and is ultimately inseparable as a thing from the non-thing. So when you're looking at the tree of life, you can conceptualize the dual nature of each sphere in the same light of thing and not thing, where the shell that each sphere wears may be envisioned as its averse or evil incarnations or expressions. And this would be called the Qlippoth, also known as the Tree of Death, basically the bad or evil version of the tree.
Now, describing them as shells is accurate because I believe the word Qlippoth means peels or shells, and they're conceptualized as, just you said, like, well, they're broken vessels that the light grows out of, because God created these vessels first, and then they were shattered, and this is what the light grows out of. And we're basically comparing the light to the vessels that it grows out of.
So there are varying ways to envision this evil tree of life, either by superimposing it onto the tree of life, or more commonly by inverting it as a mirrored reflection of the tree of life, where the top sphere, which is Kether, would be at the bottom instead. And that inversion implies the reaching down into the depths of hell instead of upwards towards heaven. In such a case as inverting the tree, you could liken this to the analogy of a tree only reaching as far upwards as the roots are capable of reaching downwards in order to root it, surrounded by the darkness of the soil in which it grows. This alternative evil version of the tree can be thought of as the twisted expressions, the inevitable byproducts, or even the satanic or Setian qualities related to the tree of life. And like Luke said, the term Qlippoth means husk, shell, or peel, and it's used in Jewish mysticism to describe the impure spiritual forces associated with the divine emanations or sephiroth. In the same way that the chaff is removed from the wheat or the peel off of an orange, it's thought that the Qlippoth are the unfruitful aspects of the emanations. They serve as a kind of container for the divine emanations, hence the idea of a husk or a shell. But just as a husk veils the fruit within, so too can the Qlippoth hide the emanation of the light poured into them. So this is a good way to visualize just how the Qlippoth is associated with darkness, serving as shells around the fruits of divine emanations of light. Generally speaking, the orange peel is not the thing that you want. You want the fruit inside of the peel.
I think the maddening thing is you don't really get the fruit without the peel.
Yes.
Which seems to suggest we need evil to have good, or something like that.
So interestingly enough, if we are to compare chapter 1 and 2 side by side, while envisioning the Qlippoth as a tree which is mirrored underneath the tree of life, like its roots, then we're comparing Kether as the uppermost out-of-reach branch starting at the very top, and side-by-side comparison at the extent of its reflection at the deepest and furthest reach of the root beneath the soil, working our way inwards to bridge the gap in the middle.
It's an interesting paradox built into this system that the closer you get to God, the shells or Qlippoth which contain them are conceptualized as further and further away from God. I think on the one hand, this may be a dark secret which allows evil greater access to energy. The greater evils they commit, etc., the more energy they have. But there's a catch. This property allows good to flourish in spite of evil, pairing greater and greater goods to lower and worse evil, producing good fruits all the while. Evil doesn't get it, but more good always comes from the bad it produces, and in greater amounts, as it says in John 1:5.
And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not.
In terms of figuring out the unity between 1 and 0, this beguiled Crowley in a way fitting of the demonic energies which become fully manifest in the next sphere. If anything, I would assume Ein Sof Ire is too lofty to contain evil, which, even in the verse, banish themselves in the primal absence invoked. What's left over is Crowley desperately trying to figure out the math which he believes is solvable, with all the important numbers revealed or expounded to him in the Book of the Law. For some context, Ein, or not, in Hebrew has the value 61. In the Book of the Law, Crowley has given some context about this. In the first chapter, Nuit tells him thusly:
The perfect and the perfect are one perfect, and not two, nay, are none. Nothing is a secret key of this law. 61, the Jews call it. I call it 8, 80, 418. But they have the half. Unite by thine arts, so that all disappear.
Commenting on this conundrum, Crowley says,
Quote, I note later that verse 48 means that all disappears when 61 plus 8, 80, 418 are reduced to 1. And this may indicate some practical mystic method of annihilation. I think that the surface meaning of this verse is to answer the unspoken criticism of the scribe who did not see how to find a zero value for such an equation. It assured him that it was only necessary to find a unity value. End quote.
Crowley then invokes the following line from the Book of the Law.
My prophet is a fool with his one. Are not they the ox, and none by the book? End quote.
Now let's be real. It's a pretty lofty question, but it's the sort of thing that spiritual nerds like myself get hung up on. Frankly, the more I began faffing about with wands and complicated rituals with serious consequences, the more vehemently I wanted to wrap my head around this fundamental question. Is God one? Or is God zero? Is there actually a fundamental difference to these two things? Is this even a meaningful question? It seems like an important one to ask when we bring up concepts like negative veils, of which we absurdly assign the quantity of 3. So I guess to wrap up verse 0, God is and God is not. It's very vague, but how do you square those two things? If you could...
Both at once and neither.
Yes. Let's just say yes.
Yes.
Chapter 1:1. Let me extol thy perfections before men.
Chapter 2, verse 1. I saw the twin heads that ever battle against one another, so all their thought is a confusion. I saw thee in these.
So now that we're at the first verse, which previously corresponded to the first sphere of Kether, in chapter 2, it's referring rather to its shell on the Qlippoth. So the Qlippothic association found in Kether's place is Thaumiel, which may be translated roughly as twins of God. The underlying nature of this shell is one of contention or contending forces, the birth of dualism from the non-being into being. The contrast of chapter 1's use of the words thy perfections is that now the concept of thy as an individuation implies a lack of unity. In other words, it's no longer not, because it is becoming. One way to look at this is that duality itself is a byproduct of creation, being and not being, unity or not unity.
And this is something I believe atheists intuit. They feel that there's something wrong about it. And I think they're onto something.
You mean like when they say there is no God?
Yeah, because they understand.
I agree in the sense that there is no God that mankind can comprehend.
Well, it's this idea that we had to work up to monotheism. And then it's my belief that monotheism is a scaffolding for us to get this next part, which is God's relationship to nothingness. And the second you have something, well, now you have something and you have nothing.
That's why, going back, it's an interface that we use to interact with something that is completely beyond our comprehension. Like when I speak of God, I don't talk about the old man in the sky. Sorry, Hecka, go on. I don't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. It's kind of like saying there's no difference between saying there is no God and there is no comprehensible God. Like God is incomprehensible, ineffable.
Like to me, just the matter that vibrates all around us is an aspect of God. And I'm not even like animistic. Well, I guess I am kind of in a way. But if you delve deep enough into like esoteric mysteries, it's going to pop into your head that this might be the way that stuff works in one way or another. But it's like, even when you try and label God in your own mind in that way, that's still just going to lead to a dead end.
And Kether deals with some pretty lofty mysteries. So if I had to take a whack at what Thaumiel is, I believe Thaumiel is the evil aspect of seeing God as one, because it confuses one as an end in itself, instead of more properly as a means ultimately to arrive at 0. This, I believe, is the flaw of 1, because 1 will always secretly be 2. For 1 to truly be 1, it would need to be 0. And if thinking about that feels like 2 burbs battling inside of your skull, well, that makes sense, because Thaumiel is usually seen as like one bird with 2 heads that are pecking at each other to death.
Yeah, and it's like, in order to really be enlightened, you have to be, not saying that I'm enlightened or like I'm not being a hottie, but you have to be able to like have these paradoxes in your mind and have it not cause like cognitive dissonance. You know what I mean?
So to follow up with what Luke was saying, you know the saying, a bird in hand is better than 2 in the bush? So
I remember that one.
Yeah, so in this case, it would be like the 2 in the bush are not, and the bird in hand is the 1 here. And maybe this is an apt contemplation for the contrast of this sphere in particular. The bird in hand was once a bird in the bush. It was not, but now it's a bird in your hand. It's 1. The twins of God, Thaumiel, is like debating what is holier, the bird before it was caught or after it was caught. isn't it the same bird? This point of contention says that the dark side of this question is that it is better to become one than to stay as none.
No!
To have emanated than to never have emanated at all.
No!
In this case, Thaumiel may be considered the total embrace of the individuation as the contendings or duality that it inherently implies, a kind of locked-in duality. It's no surprise then to see the winged heads of Satan and Moloch ruling this shell as the divided ones, the twins of God.
Isn't this also why you see Set having a Waset? Because it has like the two terminal points at the end. It's sort of to be like, devil's in the details, you can't escape this one, buddy.
Yeah, and the embrace of that is actually like the harmonization of this understanding of this kind of contemplation, basically.
And we're going to get into like thaumaturgy, right?
No. What is that? That's when you yell at
We're
God
talking about
to like...
Thaumiel.
I mean, isn't thaumaturgy when like you like fool God into like killing your enemies and like making it rain gold flakes?
Oh my God, what the
So that's the Satan of the evil Kether. Let's move on to Hakma.
Chapter 1-2. In the image of a sixfold star that flameth across the vault inane, let me reveal thy perfections.
Chapter 2, verse 2. I saw the darkeners of wisdom, like black apes chattering vile nonsense. I saw thee in these.
So the Qlippothic association to the sphere of Hakma is Gagiel, often translated as meaning the hinderers, though it may also be translated as the roof of God, implying limitations of creative principles. Here we find that wisdom is also contrasted with its opposite, which is lack of wisdom. The nature of wisdom being a result of seeking out. So this function of ferreting out is in order to gain union with that thing, which is how our minds do this. And it can be related to the inevitable pouring forth associated with this sphere. To gain union with something, as in uniting that thing with yourself. Even the ability to know what you don't know is the result of implying that wisdom exists, since there must be something which is not wisdom, and thus wisdom itself must pour forth to unify itself, and in doing so is simultaneously divided from the unity of not. Like curious, unknowing speech from the mouth of Kether to Hakma. It's like that seeking out, pouring forth. And this kind of reminds me of a baby bumbling speech in an instinctual desire to connect and learn.
Well, as we discussed earlier, the image of the sixfold star that flameth can be reduced most readily to represent the ruach, or mind, which is both active and projective, will also be enclosing for the truth it's supposed to contain as a chariot. In the chariot card of the tarot, we see the vehicles pulled by 4 different sphinxes, which ideally can be directed towards a goal. This, as we discussed, is the higher aspect of the mind, a creator of words which at their best enclose or veil the truth, but in a good way, like a womb. This quality, and its averse aspect, would be like the opposite. So the Qlippothic order of beings associated with this sphere are the hinderers, which makes sense because in its good aspect, the chariot of the word has the ability to project the truth forward. Also, the hinderers sound like speed bumps. You know, if you're in a chariot like a car, makes sense. Now, in the negative aspect, the word, it can hinder or obstruct the truth, thereby covering it, obscuring it, and trapping it, like a car wreck.
I mean, even the formulation of words that we speak utilizes this kind of hindering nature in order to form the words in the first place. Like our mouths open, shut, starts, stops with airflow. We contort our lips and our lungs in order to expel speech forth from ourselves.
Now here, the averse or bad quality of the word is compared to these vile chattering black apes, which, putting Crowley's commentary aside for a moment, likely infers that even the best speech is little more than the vocalization of an ape, when misapplied or uttered unfaithfully or without honesty or without care or reflection or understanding, etc., is basically just little more than chirping noises. You know, like when someone says, I see your lips flapping, but you're not saying a whole lot, that kind of thing.
It's hilarious, dude.
And you know, the people that know me best know that if I ever say to someone during an argument, wow, you'll say anything, that's like basically the worst thing I could ever say to you, because I'm basically calling you a vile chattering ape. Like, if you ever argued with someone and like at some point they've like lost and they're just like saying stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the time. That's usually what happens.
I don't like it. Because when I'm arguing, I'm like actually trying to work stuff out. But this is what they're talking about. It's like words could mean absolutely nothing.
Dude, you know what that reminded me of? It like made me crack up so hard when you were saying that. It reminds me of like Cthulhu Lovecraftian stuff where like we don't have enough tongues to say the names of the old gods correctly. So like we just sound like chittering monkeys to them because like we don't have enough tongues.
Okay, real talk. If you go through Typhonian and OTO, you have like a Lovecraftian equivalent to each of these spheres. Or you can look at Lovecraft and then apply, like, oh, this is a distorted version of this sphere, much like what we're doing now. So you're actually onto something.
Yeah, I was like, I heard this before. That's why it was funny to me.
Like, don't quote me, but I think like Gnarly Hotep would be...
Gnarly Hotep.
I can't... See, we just said nobody can pronounce it. I'm a rabbit, okay? I pronounce things how I want.
Gnarly Hotep.
Gnarly Hotep, dude. That's the best way to pronounce it from now on.
Yeah.
So Crowley goes kind of hipster and takes it a little too far because the black chattering apes work by themselves, but he like erroneously starts confusing it with the ape of Thoth because it sounds more esoteric. This is what he says.
The other form of Thoth represents him primarily as wisdom and the word. He bears in his right hand the style, in his left the papyrus. He is the messenger of the gods. He transmits their will by hieroglyphs intelligible to the initiate and records their acts. But it was seen from very early times that the use of speech or writing meant the introduction of ambiguity at the best and falsehood at the worst. They therefore represented Thoth as followed by an ape, the cynocephalus, whose business was to distort the word of God, to mock, to simulate, and to deceive. In philosophical language, one may say, manifestation implies illusion. In Hindu philosophy, where the aspect of Tahuti of which we are speaking is called Mayan.
So I don't actually want to get too deep into the blanket statement or misuse of the ape of Thoth and his energetic role here because there is a lot to this. So instead of saying all the reasons why I could classify this as being wrong, I would like to instead direct the attention to what is being conveyed here and its actual Egyptian parallel, which does still have to do with Thoth and baboons, though not specifically the ape of Thoth or the baboon representation of Thoth known as Aani. So this is because instead of Aani, the baboon of Thoth, we can still find a decent representation of this averse energetic narrative in a somewhat obscure text called the Papyrus Jumulhak. In this papyrus, it has a myth about a lesser known or acknowledged baboon deity called Babi or Baba.
Listen closely, Tim.
So most representations of Babi depict him as a baboon who symbolizes both virility and destruction. These are things that baboons are pretty well known for. In the context of the underworld, this aggressive behavior is generally depicted in his bloodthirst, chief of baboons standing next to the lake of fire and devouring the entrails of the unrighteous. So basically, if you are not Ma'at, Babi is going to eat your innards and he's going to have a boner while doing it. He's most commonly shown with an erection, sometimes even having his erection contextualized symbolically as the mast of the sun god Ra's ship. So you know that pole that extends upwards on a boat where the sail is connected and it extends from it? That pole
awesome.
on the boat of the sun is Babi's giant monkey penis.
So the sun god traverses the underworld in a penis monkey boat.
Great.
So imagine a baboon with a constant raging boner feasting on the flesh of the unjust or the untruthful, and this is Babi in a nutshell. At least his averse qualities in a nutshell.
This is also anyone who had that default monkey icon with the red background on Xbox Live. That's also Babi. I think
What?
we've all met Babi at least once. No, you ever play Xbox Live?
Yeah, dude, I'm just trying to think of how, yeah, what the
You've
That
got like the
connection
little
is
criminal
hilarious.
guy blowing the bubble gum. You've got, what else? The monkey guy. There's a few default icons, and everyone who ever had the monkey icon was insanely toxic and had a boner and was going to eat your body as soon as you died. That's a fact of life. Like, we had to change how we think of online gaming because Bobby got out. Okay, that's
because of all
what
the
happened.
racial slurs. Yeah.
He can't help it.
So basically, the energetic narrative for Babi is like a high libido baboon chief, ruthless to the unjust. Modern religious interpretations would probably classify him as a demon, despite the benevolent and harmonious roles that he does actually play. But I'm digressing a bit here. So we can relate him to both the solar Ra and Thoth, or wisdom, through this baboon symbolism, as well as what is righteous or Ma'at, since his job is propagation of Ma'at or consuming that which is not Ma'at. So you could even think of Babi as a kind of byproduct, mechanism, or function of Thoth and Ma'at. Thoth, who represents wisdom, is often said to be the husband of Ma'at or truth, and Babi symbolizes the creative union of energy that is shared between Thoth and Ma'at. That union is seemingly perpetual perpetual, like the unending skeet energy of Hawkma that we talked about last episode. Now, for how this can tie back into the black apes chattering vile nonsense part of this verse, there's a myth from that papyrus Jumilhak where Bobby accuses Thoth of thievery in front of the Council of Gods, including Ra, and then he continues afterwards to spread rumors about Thoth. Bobby is basically just throwing shade on Thoth, and then Bobby is found guilty by the council.
Is this where Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo comes from?
No, but song lyrics do come into this conversation very soon.
Bobby is found guilty by the council, and in retaliation, Thoth casts a spell on Bobby's penis, causing it to swell up so much during intercourse that he cannot separate himself from his partner. He is trapped in union, all up in there. And now the exact word for this partner in which Bobby finds himself trapped inside of is Menet, which translates to someone. And I think this is an interesting point to make because these narratives in ancient myths were commonly pretty specific unless the point was not to be. They also utilized a play on words a lot. So Menet just happens to also be the word used for a necklace, or more specifically, Hathor's necklace, which was symbolic of the feminine circle, where the design is kind of held in place on your neck by a kind of counterweight.
So the monkey got his penis stuck in Hathor's necklace.
Yes, this is how I interpret this at least. And that would fit pretty well actually with where the sphere and its shell is. Now, in this myth, if you look deeper at this accusation, which implies that wisdom itself is a theft of the ineffable, infinite pre-creation, I think we can unpack that. Because according to this myth, while Bobby is stuck in perpetual intercourse, Thoth mocks Bobby's exposed testicles in front of Ra. And then Bobby is sacrificed by Thoth on a block.
Ouch. It's kind of brutal. For the gods sacrifice you to themselves, they laugh at your tiny monkey penis.
So the narrative...
I believe was his balls, right?
Yeah, they're like laughing at his exposed balls because he's stuck in perpetual intercourse and his balls are hanging out.
Oh.
So the narrative of this story basically is that Bobby, whose name means bull of the baboons and who symbolizes the virility of wisdom itself, accuses wisdom of being the thief, thereby implying that the wisdom's deviation from unity is a theft of the unity and continues promulgating itself by perpetually stealing from the all from whence it came. His accusation of Thoth is the thing, the exact thing, which Bobby himself symbolizes. And his punishment is to continue to be that.
All right.
So where Hawkma's function is as wisdom infinitely skeeting or pouring forth from the all, much like a baboon with endless virility, the accusation of thievery would imply that Bobby, as that exact function, is the one who is guilty, and we see that reflected in the story. So the constant pouring forth of the ineffable into conception may be related to that kind of perpetual vibration, like speaking of the ineffable into concept and creation. This is summarily defined as divine utterance, the speaking of truth, and the impartiality of creative energy's perpetuation is symbolized by Bobby himself. And you could see this as nonsensical because of its impartiality, despite its relationship with wisdom and truth.
Logic functions backwards above the abyss as well.
Then, as an energetic narrative, his name also has to do specifically with the Ba soul. The first hieroglyph in his name is a leg, making the first B sound, and that's often used phonetically, but also in words to do with negative aspects or places, as in a place, position, or a thing. And this hieroglyph is actually used twice in the word for Ben, which is the mound of creation, and I've related that to the Upper Trinity before. The second hieroglyph of his name is the saddle-billed stork, specifically indicating the Ba soul, which is the mobile quicksilver or spirit of God. So Bobby may be used to symbolize the putting forth into place the spirit and perpetuity of God, which is wisdom, or the going forth of wisdom.
This sounds like a fitting energy for what alchemists call Mercury. Am I wrong?
I think that hits. So with this in mind, that impartiality of the all pouring forth may be thought of as being irresponsible, divided, or even nonsensical. And I can't help but notice that these averse descriptions of the sphere may also be applied to Babylon as the indiscriminate mother of all things, or holy whore who receives and gives birth to all. I also think it's possible that Babylon shares an older etymological root in Baba or Bobby, because they're both said to be pronunciations of his name, but Baba may actually be closer to the proper pronunciation. And anytime that the whole rabbit has put me into a rant about the bossel, we eventually arrive at the Kid Rock ba with the ba thing again. And this starts running through my head, and it's parallel to this theme because that song also shares this nonsensical, gibberish kind of lyrical theme.
Awesome.
So when Kid Rock says, get in the pit and try and love someone, somehow it's very apt because Bobby lives in the pit and his consort is someone. And then the song itself is about focusing on the deeds of criminals and the unjust. So it seems right over the target to me.
Ba with the ba, the bangy bang, diggy.
That's crazy.
It's so gibberish, right?
Well, he's also the bull god.
Yeah.
You know, like the whole album is just full of that stuff. And it's like not really hiding it in that one. So just to like break it down for us dummies, I think Bobby is a good representation of being too critical on the function of speech itself. Or like being overly nitpicky in an argument or being too eager to point out contradictions as a way to like shut out wisdom. You know, like fedora hat tipping atheists who think that just because you can't physically walk on water somehow discounts the wisdom teachings of Christ. You know what I mean? It's like, well, of course the Bible's not real because you can't walk on water. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess you're right. Nobody thought of that one. I want to say one more thing. Relating Bobby to Babylon sounds like a stretch at first until we arrive all the way down in number 10. And it's for a good reason. Without spoiling it, Crowley sometimes describes Lilith as the veil of Babylon.
I also think it's kind of an interesting connection with the Tower of Babel. Babel.
Oh, and like the tower itself was like a big giant penis.
Yeah, and the babbling of all the languages, the nonsense, yeah.
And of course, the Hebrew letter associated with that is peh, which means mouth. So also makes sense. And so, yeah, we have a relationship between Babylon and the monkey. I don't know. Keep that in mind. That seems to be a huge discovery for us this episode.
It's not like a really common comical rendition. It's like the big gorilla suit wearing a dress. You even see it in the productions of Cabaret, don't you?
Bibbidi bobbidi boo.
All right. Now we arrive where the Greek gods come into the text. So it gives us a little more to work with than just abstruse religious math.
Chapter 1-3. Thou hast appeared unto me as an aged god, a venerable god, the Lord of time, bearing a sharp sickle.
Chapter 2, verse 3. I saw the devouring mothers of hell that eat up their children. O ye that are without understanding, I saw thee in these. This book is so cozy. It's the perfect book for when it starts getting cold outside and you just want to like snuggle up with something easy to read in bed.
With your pumpkin spice latte.
I'm drinking one right now, Mari.
Oh, really?
The Qlippothic association that mirrors Bina is called Satariel, and that's known as the concealers. So the Hebrew here may be translated as meaning the secret of God. Since Satariel is the shell of Bina, which symbolizes understanding, we could say that Satariel is without understanding. It is outside of it and surrounds it, hiding it. That's the concealer.
The light concealing cream goes on first. Then you blend and blend and blend. Blending is the secret.
Imagine an energy preventing you from understanding or being understood. Nobody understands me, Mom, is a typical refrain of teenagers with Saturnine disposition the world over.
I feel that.
Dion Fortune does a good job describing this sphere thusly.
Bina, the Great Mother, sometimes also called Mara, the Great Sea, is, of course, the mother of all living. She is the archetypal womb through which life comes into manifestation. Whatsoever provides a form to serve life as a vehicle is of her. It must be remembered, however, that life confined in a form, although it is enabled thereby to organize and so evolve, it is much less free than it was when it was unlimited, though also unorganized on its own plane. Involvement in a form is therefore the beginning of the death of life. It is a straightening and a limiting, a binding and a constricting. Form checks life, thwarts it, and yet enables it to organize. Seen from the point of view of free-moving force, incarceration in a form is extinction. Form disciplines force with a merciless severity. The disembodied spirit is immortal. There is nothing of it that can grow old or die, but the embodied spirit sees death on the horizon as soon as its day dawns.
The giving of form to something requires a further division that cultivates individuation. So this requires a closing off from or concealing nature, closing the thing off from that which is outside of the thing that is being formed. So for example, when you cultivate mycelium to grow your own mushrooms, you close it off so that it can self-propagate. its contact is separated from the outside world, even though a bit of airflow is still needed to keep it alive. You want to separate it, otherwise it won't grow and it's taken over by some other fungus or bacteria. So if we liken the tiny amounts of regulated airflow through filters here to Cetariel on the Tree of Death, we find that because it would still be so far down in the roots, it receives very little of the divine light. That tiny amount of light that it does receive is just enough to keep it from being completely botched, though it is still representative of a state of misunderstanding, not knowing. Instead, it's the shell of chaos and confusion that separates the growing culture inside from the outside, and doesn't really know either because it is neither of them. It's like a wineskin, but not the wine. Taking the imagery of a womb, which seals off the growing fetus from the external, I want to draw a parallel here with how it can be applied to the infanticide that we see in this line of chapter 2, as a mother devouring her young. Now, if you were to take a bacterial culture and seal it off without enough nutrients in that closed system to feed it, then the bacteria begin to die off. The dead cells then break open and become a food source for the remaining living bacteria. And we even see this kind of thing happening in animals, where the least viable young within the closed circuit of the familial group will be consumed for the ability to greater ensure the survival of the others. And this way we see the devourer aspect of the maternal womb.
You said that so eloquently, I'm sure a listener or two completely missed that you were talking about moms eating their own children. In biology, it's known as filial cannibalism. It's common for bears, so much for mama bear energy. Am I right?
Spooky.
I think that makes bears strangely emblematic of this principle we're exploring here today. They're, on the one hand, fierce protectors of their young, and then on the other hand, they eat them when they get hungry.
Yes, queen.
Oh my God.
You go, girl. You deserve it. That little baby be crying all the time. Also, lions. Somehow that's easier to believe. Hamsters. All sorts of burbs. Get this. Rabbits.
I believe it.
Chimpanzees. Chimpanzees. We're basically chimpanzees. That's scary to think about. Rats, mice, pigs. That's almost everything on Animal Farm at this point.
I once had a rat that was impregnated by her brother, and I separated them so that it was just her and the babies. And then she ate all the babies. And I kept finding the torsos or partly consumed baby rats. Sometimes, if it just isn't viable as a healthy baby, or if it requires nutrients that the parent doesn't have, then the mother accommodates by picking the healthiest and eating the unhealthiest to give her enough energy to feed the healthy one, or just straight up eating all of them. Even bald eagles can do this. I've seen it. Sometimes it's so intense that when combined with sibling rivalry, the weakest will just die off. Like the bald eagle will just offer it to whichever one is the strongest and ignore the other one until eventually the other one just dies. But it also happens even if the mother isn't deliberately trying to kill it. So
Gross.
You know, the flip side of this one is called matrophagy, where the offspring consume their mom, either by the mom allowing it or being eaten after their death. So basically, time is the greatest teacher that ultimately kills all its students. That's maybe the best way to say it. Okay, Tim, let's move on to Chesed.
Chapter 1-4. Thou hast appeared unto me as a jocund and ruddy god, full of majesty, a king, a father in his prime. Thou didst bear the scepter of the universe, crowned with the wheel of the spirit.
Chapter 2, verse 4. I saw the merciless and the unmajestic like harpies tearing their foul food. I saw thee in these. It's kind of fun that since Jupiter's a god of the sky, the demons associated with Chesed would be harpies. They do fly, after all. I actually learned quite a bit about harpies to write my section here. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about the Qlippothic demons associated with this sphere, Hecka.
Hell yeah, I love demonology.
Ga'ag Shekla is the Qlippothic counterpoint to the sphere of Chesed. So that's the shell. It's most often translated as meaning smiters, breakers in pieces, or the devourers. In Hebrew, it can be translated as the weighing of Ga'ag. And when I tried looking into what Ga'ag meant, I found that it's related to a few different concepts like feasts, smiting, rising up. The growling or moaning, akin to lions, is also in there.
Meow. Meow.
It's just the, what?
Mari? Who was that?
What's the... That was Luke. What is the film company that has the roaring lion?
MGM.
Yeah, that.
Oh, that makes sense. Every time you see that, you're worshiping Gagiel.
Alternatively, this can also be summarized in the alternate epithet for this shell, which is destroyer, as the shell which surrounds it, Chesed, blocks the divine light of mercy and care within it. Ga'ag Shekla is that which is without mercy or care, so it can be conceptualized as cruelty from misguided love or care. This functions without the boundaries or the composure which love would generally act as a guide for. And since it lacks this, it typically symbolizes a kind of misguided or perverse love, which consumes the object and thereby becomes hatred or sullied. This energy is in line with a kind of act of hunting down for the purpose of annihilation, which is easily related to the concept of smiting. Since this is the shell of Chesed, it's kind of like how Zeus's thunderbolt will find you and strike you down, or Liam Neeson from the movie Taken.
Now, in terms of sky gods, it could be argued that you might place Horus in this sphere, if we're talking about ancient Egyptian deities. And from what I understand, Horus in his warlike aspect operated in this way where you couldn't hide from Horus. He would find you and kill you, every last one of you.
It reminds me a bit of how Gevurah and Chesed kind of mirror each other on opposite sides of the Tree of Life. And you have these warlike gods or war gods associated with Gevurah, and they're often kind of overlapping in the sense that that energy is kind of meant to protect and go to war for the thing that is like the love of the ruler.
Well, because Gevurah and Gedula complement each other, it would make sense that their evil and averse aspects would have some overlap. The thing here is that while Gedula or Chesed is anabolic, it likes to build and consume. It grows the thing it loves. In this case, it consumes it like wildly, and it'll go to any end to do it. So like I said, I had to learn a little bit about harpies to figure out how this all fit together. And since the sacred text we're looking at is invoking the Greek world of myth, I found that the harpies are related to who else but Zeus, a fitting deity for the sphere of Chesed. So, from Greek myth, we have King Phineus of Thrace. Now, supposedly he was given the gift of prophecy by Zeus, but what did he do? He goes around blabbing it to everybody, and Zeus is not pleased. As a punishment, Zeus has him blinded, and then puts him on an island with a buffet of food that he can never enjoy because the harpies always come and eat all the food first before he can ever satisfy his hunger. Some versions of the myth, they just poop on the food and get feathers in it while they're eating it, and they make it all gross. Either way, King Phineus is totally unable to satisfy his appetite, despite what looks to be this sumptuous feast every day. So as someone who struggles with imbalanced Jupiter energy from time to time, I think Gagiel would best be described as all the evils that come from excess, overindulgence, and the diminishing returns we know that selfishness earns us. For instance, the amount it takes for a true junkie to feel anything even slightly present is about the same amount that would satisfy the ecstasy of a whole banquet of casual or first-time enjoyers. At some point, you can't keep up with your own appetite, and attempting to becomes so ugly and horrible and disgusting, we become simultaneously like King Phineus, where we can never satiate our desires, and the disgusting harpies who are doing so quickly that it becomes disgusting. And I don't know if they ever feel satisfaction. They're just always hungry too. So they're both always hungry.
So this is kind of like, I'll be happy when... And then that goalpost keeps moving. Like once you attain that, it's just not enough.
Yes.
So you never actually attain that happiness that you're like, well, I'll be happy when.
Yes, absolutely.
Chasing the dragon.
Yes, it is chasing the dragon. I think that's what Gagiel does. Gagiel makes great video games.
I'm done eating.
Well, that's good you have, because if you'd like to continue this banquet of wisdom with us and hear about the rest of the spheres from Gevurah down all the way to Malkuth.
If you have any room after the Devourers.
Yeah, if you have any room after the Devourers, we have some burners for you. But if you'd like to hear that part of the show, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only earn you access to the extended version of this audio grimoire, it'll earn you the extended version of every single one of our podcast episodes, which goes back all the way before the 20s. So that's a lot of material to binge if you are into binging podcasts. Not only that, I'll send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl sticker for our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art at no additional cost. I have the box sitting in my living room, and I promise I'll I'm giving you live updates so you know that I'm doing it.
I'll help.
But not only that, if you sign up on our Patreon right now, you'll get instantaneous access to our secret Discord server, where you can talk to us about all the seemingly incomprehensible stuff that we're talking about on the show. Like, what do harpies have to do with Jupiter again, you may ask? You know, come pick our brain. You'd be surprised how little people do pick our brain or discuss crazy occult stuff in our Discord. People are mostly just hanging out.
I mean, they do talk about occult stuff from time to time. I am asked questions about Egypt. And feel free to pick my brain anytime.
It's
I
true.
see all kinds of stupid shit.
We're philosophy bros.
Yeah, I'm a philosopher too, yeah.
And gals and thems and stuffs.
But I come from the perspective of Child Horus, so I'm just ridiculous.
And you can be too. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew, pew, pew. If you have any room left for carrots.